Stepgun here. Hope all you guys are having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be going over something I find really interesting. Buying cheap guns. Is it really worth it? Should you buy a cheap gun? Well, here I have my special, this is called the BK, okay? So this is it's a very cheap gun. You can get it in most places. Some people call it a butter knife. Messing with you guys. All right, guys, but yeah, today it's more kind of a talk. I brought out my Heritage Rough Rider. You know, this gun I believe I paid like $130 for this thing, but it's a 22 single action revolver. So I mean, the only way you fire, you pull the hammer back, single action, and that's how the gun fires. But more so than really showing guns today, I just kind of want to talk to everybody. So and give my opinion on buying a cheap gun. Should you really buy a cheap gun? All right, and that's the question that a lot of people are asking, you know what I mean? So I'm going to give you my input on that, all right? Well, when it comes down to it, and those of you looking to buy a gun, and people in the gun stores, people going somewhere, they're going to buy a gun. Someone has a son, you know, they want to buy a gun, go take my son shooting, or someone just moved somewhere and they feel unsafe in their house and they're like, hey, I need to buy a gun now, you know? Well, one thing that gets overlooked a lot, and you know, us as gun collectors and gun people really have a tendency sometimes to not really understand people, okay? Say someone goes into the store and they're like, hey, I want to buy a high point. You know, everybody in the gun store is going to be like, ha, look at that guy, he wants to go buy a high point. Or, hey, look at that guy, he wants to buy a yeet cannon, you know what I mean? But the truth is, a lot of times, people just don't know, okay? And, you know, you look at different things, you know, different jobs, you go to different people's job sites, you know, and you go try to learn someone else's job, you're not going to know what they do if they do construction, or say they do, say someone's an engineer, or say someone's a pilot. You know, you never really know. People do things differently. And the same thing with guns. When a new person enters that gun world, they don't really know what they're looking at. They may go into a gun store and, you know, look at a gun that's $100, but, you know, we as other people don't understand what's in their pocket right now. You know, some people may be trying to buy a gun because they don't feel safe where they are. Some people may be trying to buy a gun and they're on a budget, okay? That's something else too. And not everybody has the money to just walk into a store and go buy a Kinder 1911 or go buy an original Colt 1911. Or some people don't have the money to go into a store and buy an FN Scar, you know what I mean? So that's something to consider. And that's the reason that a lot of guns are made the way they are. They're made budget-friendly guns. You know, you look at your Taurus, you look at the Ruger Security, you know, you look at, you know, I think Canik, they're a pistol made in Turkey now. These guns are a little bit cheaper, but they're made so people can afford them because not everybody is super well off. And when it comes to buying a cheap gun, my opinion is it's like anything else you've ever bought in your life before, okay? This gun here, I have shot it so much, I heard so much negativity about it, and I liked it. I was like, this is a cool looking gun, and I have never had a single issue firing this gun, okay? And 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum, because you can swap the cylinder out. Now when it comes down to guns, okay, for the serious part here, if you buy a gun, and you take care of it, it's gonna last you, okay? There are guns that are super expensive that have issues sometimes, you know what I mean? The only gun, even my Glock actually, I've had a Glock, before I really knew this, when I was a new Glock guy, I used to just lubricate the crap out of my Glocks. I'd put oil everywhere because to me, everything's moving, there needs to be a lot of oil in there, and I started getting issues with my Glocks. Okay, and what I started finding out is where the ejector is and the firing pin on the top of the slide on the Glock, and you take that out, there was oil getting in there, okay? And when a firing pin hits a bullet, there's an explosion that takes place and that gunpowder goes everywhere. Well, inside the top of the slide on my Glock, it was getting filled up because there was oil in there attracting that dirt, and it was causing issues with my striker and issues with my ejector, okay? Now, when it comes to looking at a Taurus, when it comes to looking at a Heritage 22, when it comes to looking at these cheaper end guns that people that are looking at, that's all they can afford, it's the same thing. In my opinion, when you buy a cheap gun, guess what? Before that gun was sold, before I went to a gun store, okay, there was someone that made that gun and it was quality assurance checked, meaning that that gun worked, okay? And if that's all you can afford, you know, avoid the negativity out there because there's going to be a lot of people talk crap. And a lot of times those people in the gun stores or those people that run their mouths really have no clue about firearms, okay? In my opinion, buying a cheap gun, if that's all you can afford right now, okay, and you're on a super tight budget, and you can afford to go out and buy a $1,000 pistol, not many people can, buying a $300 pistol, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you're going to do your research and figure out which one's best for you, but when you do buy that gun, take care of it, okay? If you don't know anything about a gun, get home, read the owner's manual, learn how to take it apart, learn how to keep it lubricated, learn how to keep the gun healthy. And if you do that, I believe there's a Taurus G2C video out right now, and the guy has 10,000 rounds through a Taurus G2C. That's a lot of rounds through a gun. But if you look at the firearm, he takes tremendous care of the gun, okay? So buying a cheap gun, is it really worth it? I think so. If that's all you can afford, okay, and you're on a super tight budget and you need a firearm, most certainly there are guns out there for you. When you buy a cheaper gun, it's like buying a cheaper car. It's like buying, anything cheaper. Like you want to buy toys, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, you buy something a little bit cheaper. I'm trying to think of some other scenarios here. Like anything you buy a little bit cheaper. Even like clothing. You start looking at hunting clothing, for example. You buy really cheap in clothing, it's not going to last as long. But anything you get like that, especially something that's metal or something that has moving parts, a mechanical part. If you take care of that part, keep it super clean, keep everything well maintained with a gun, it's gonna last you guys. It's gonna do what it was meant to do. Now, in my opinion, if you can save money over time and get something a little bit better, maybe a Glock or something like that, then do that. But one thing that is a pet peeve of mine is when someone walks into a gun store and they're looking at something, maybe a $200 pistol, and people down the way start talking crap about somebody. That really bothers me because people really don't know. I was there at one point, and any of you that has ever owned a firearm, even me, I was born into it. I was shooting guns when I was 5 years old, and still, I walked into a gun store and didn't know anything about guns. And you were the same way. If you're already a gun collector and a gun guy, there's people that are like that. Give them a chance. That's all they can afford. And mind your own business. When it comes to that. And obviously, if you're the guy behind the counter and you're selling a gun to somebody, take into consideration that that's all they can afford, and they really want a gun for the safety and security of their family. It's important to mention and imperative to mention that, hey, take care of it, okay? This is how you take care of a gun. If you want it to last a long time, you want to make sure you keep these parts here clean. You want to make sure you keep the barrel clean. You want to make sure you keep the slide lubricated, but not too lubricated, okay? But buying cheap guns, is it a good idea? Absolutely, But that's all today, guys. I was just gonna, fill you in on my opinion. Is it worth it? Absolutely. If you could save your money up and get something a little bit better, then do that too. But just remember, if you're buying a cheaper gun, if you're buying a cheap gun, it's a little bit cheaper, okay? So it's not going to be made to perfection and handmade, So you may have to do a little bit more preventive maintenance, if you will, to take care of the gun. But as always, if you want something really trusty, the BK3000 right here, this thing is, it's super awesome, you know what I mean? I've spread a lot of butter with this thing right here. Messing with you guys, giving you guys a good laugh. But hey, as always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There are tremendous amounts of videos coming out. I mean, everything you can imagine. From shooting tannerite with an AR-15, we'll get that out there, to reviewing my Smith & Wessons. And hey, maybe there's something you guys out there in the audience want to see me review. Comment below. I might can get my hands on it and try to review it. But until next time, guys, Step Gun out.